Shipping up to Boston, whoa. Shipping up to Boston, whoa. Let me eat it up. Let me eat this up. The mighty Golden State Warriors, who downed the Boston Celtics on the Garden floor just 2 years ago in the NBA Finals, come into this building and get absolutely walloped, smacked, destroyed, eaten alive, whatever you want to call it. Celtics win 140-88. It's their third 50 bomb this season, making it the most in NBA history. And oh my goodness, the utter domination that was displayed from this basketball team today. Welcome to Titletown Talk with your host, Jackson Tolliver. I'm just relishing in this victory right now. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson didn't even come out in the second half. It was that bad. It was 44 at half, I believe. Yeah, 44-point deficit for the Warriors at halftime. The most the Warriors have ever been down at half. I mean, are we kidding? Are we joking? This was incredible. I'm not even going to highlight, I guess I could highlight JB scoring 19 in the first quarter. Ridiculous. He was on an absolute heater. But it feels wrong of me to just go in and talk about each player individually because it was such a great team effort. And the best part is there was no Porzingis. They didn't even need Porzingis to get this done. I mean, you start with Al Horford at center, and the whole group just showed how dominant they really are. From start to finish, it was all Celtics. I mean, it was 21-21 after a few minutes in the first quarter, but then it was all Celtics. They went on, I think it was a 22-1 run to blow up a huge lead at the end of the first quarter, and they just kept on rolling all throughout the end. The Stay Ready crew, the bench boys, shout out, Peyton Pritchard, O'Shea Brissett, Xavier Tillman, Sam Hauser, Svi Mikhailuk, Jaden Springer, got some good minutes there. Shout out those guys, kept it competitive until the very end, kept it entertaining to watch. Ryan Ruocco and Richard Jefferson simply ran out of things to talk about during the broadcast. It was that bad. And I felt bad because at the same time the Clippers-Timberwolves game is going on. Not sure if that game's over yet. But it's actually a really good game between, the two teams fighting for the 1 seed in the West. And ESPN kept cutting to it at the commercial breaks. They're like, and now Kawhi Leonard's hit another three. Norman Powell's hit another three. This is a really good game. They have to show they can win this. Now we'll bring you back to Boston, where it is a 50-point blowout underway right now. And the Warriors are getting absolutely embarrassed on national television. Steph Curry 0 for 8 from 3. Absolutely humiliated. Clamped up. I don't know if he's dealing with that injury. I don't know how serious the right knee bursitis was. Maybe it was the left knee. I shouldn't say right knee. Whichever knee it was, bursitis. Not so sure how serious that is. But hopefully he gets better soon if it is a serious injury. Klay also apparently was dealing with something in his hamstring, I think. So, hopefully wishing all the best to those two players. Great players. I hate seeing them off the court. But my goodness. I got to, take a step back here with the Celtics and realize that we also had a game on Friday against Dallas. I'll dive into that first. That one was 138-110. Another great masterclass for the Celtics. They played two of their best games of the season this weekend, I thought. In that one, Kyrie, 9 for 23 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3. Sort of invisible, to be honest, throughout the majority of that game compared to what you expect him to see. The funniest statistic is that he's 0-10 against the Boston Celtics since he stepped on the logo infamously in that 2021 series against when it was the Celtics versus the Nets when they still had KD and Harden, and the Celtics obviously lost that series. Nets went on to lose to the Bucks in the second round. But I just think that's so funny that he's 0-10. And every time Kyrie Irving touches the ball, I touched on this in the last podcast when I was previewing this game, it is chaos in the Garden. They boo him consistently every time, and I love it. I think he totally deserves it. It's not just like that we don't like him because he's on another team. It's the way that everything was handled that rubs Celtics fans the wrong way, right? We don't like to be lied to. No one likes to be lied to. And he marched out on opening day in 2018 and said, I'm going to stick around here for I'll re-sign because his contract was expiring. If you guys would have me, I'd love to stay. Season unravels, partially due to him ruining the chemistry. And then he walks away and goes and joins the super team Brooklyn Nets, which didn't pan out, obviously. Celtics ended that team, essentially, when they absolutely smacked them in his last game there. Kyrie and KD's last game there last season. Obviously, they both requested a trade after that game. So, yeah, back to Dallas. Tatum had a great game, 32 points, 10 for 19 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, 8 rebounds. And this brings up the question of, is Jason Tatum an MVP candidate? I think he's definitely a candidate at this point, but could he actually win it? He went up against Luka and beat him. Luka is certainly another MVP candidate. But the thing with Tatum that I'll say, and, I love Jason Tatum. If you guys have watched the first 2 episodes of the pod or you know me personally, you know I love Jason Tatum. He's my favorite basketball player. I love what he's done for this city, for this team. I think he's a tremendous player. I don't think he's the MVP. And unfortunately, I don't think he'll ever win the MVP award while he's with Boston, just because of how good the team is around him. At least with this roster, he's not going to win it. Because when you think about a player in terms of their value to a team, right? You have guys like Jokic, Embiid, who's obviously not going to win it because he's injured, Luka, SGA, guys that are absolutely integral to their team's success. These are teams that are, top 3 seeds and, I guess Dallas isn't a top 3 seed, but top seeds. And if you took that player away from that team, it would be a completely different team overall. Like, Denver's a perfect example. What would they be without Jokic? If Jokic went down with an injury, knock on wood, that he doesn't, if Jokic went down with an injury, what would the Nuggets be? Nothing, right? That's not a controversial statement. But what if Tatum went down with an injury? We don't know because Tatum, again, knock on wood, I hate talking about injuries and, speculating that players have been so healthy, but Tatum has been healthy throughout the majority of his career. We don't know what that Celtics team really looks like without him, but when you look at the talent that they have, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford, right? I feel like they'd still be a good team, top 3 seed. So in terms of value, his numbers aren't where these other guys are because he has such a good team around him, which makes me think that he's probably not going to win it. And this isn't really going to change the situation. They just extended Kristaps. They're going to extend Derek White and Drew Holiday. They're going to do everything in their power to keep those guys around, keep the starting 5 intact. Al will be there till he retires. But, this team is going to remain unchanged. They just inked Pritchard. Like, this roster going into next year, I don't anticipate them making any big changes whatsoever. So the situation around Tatum is going to stay the same. So how is he expected to win an MVP award when the team around him is just so good? Because for Tatum, it's not about his individual numbers, right? He said that. It's not about his stats. It's not about his assists, his points, anything like that. It's just about the team winning. He doesn't care about his, and maybe that's a farce, and maybe he does care about winning the MVP. I'm sure he would love it, but he cares more about the team's success, and he has shown a great amount of sacrifice this season, to get other guys more involved and to put the team ahead of himself. And it's honestly quite rare that you see a top 5 player do that. Tatum is a top 5 player, by the way. It is rare that you see somebody do that. A lot of these guys have egos up the wazoo. They can't let go of their pride. They just have to be the guy. Now, Tatum is the guy on the Boston Celtics, but there's a lot of other guys, right? Jaylen Brown on any given night can be the guy. Kristaps Porzingis could be the guy. Even Drew Holiday and Derek White could be the guy, right? But Tatum isn't going to take that away from them. He's going to root for his teammates. He's become such a good player to play with, and I'm just so proud of him for taking that leap, because there were a lot of questions, early on in his career, the first few years. He struggled a lot his second year, that year with Kyrie. There were questions of, is this guy a good teammate? Is he a team player? Can he, put his ego to the side up and care more about winning a championship than his own accolades? And he's done that, right? There's no question that Tatum this season and last season, the season before, but especially this season, has sacrificed a lot for his teammates, for his team to be in the position they are now, where they have the best record through 60 games since that 07-08 team that won the 17th banner. They're on track to win, without a doubt. They're on track to win this thing. It's theirs to lose. So I'm incredibly proud of Tatum, but I don't think he's going to be the MVP. Jaylen Brown had like an average game, which is a good thing now because Jaylen Brown's averages are so good. 25 points on 11 for 20 shooting. Got to talk about that spin move layup. So crafty. He said after the game that he didn't even know why he did that, what possessed him to do that. But man, he is such a fun player to watch. So explosive on those big time plays. He did something similar to it today, actually, in the game. It wasn't as impressive as that one he did, but very good stuff from him. Drew Holiday. Got to give him his flowers. Got to give him his flowers. That fading out of bounds corner 3 that he took in the first quarter, ridiculous. 3 for 3 from deep in the game. hampered on it a lot during this podcast. He's the best corner 3 shooter in the NBA right now, percentage-wise, just over 60%. So impressed with him and what he's been able to do on both ends of the floor. He was the absolute perfect addition by Brad Stevens to this squad. He's just what they needed, especially after they lost Marcus Smart. Such a good defensive player. Derek White and Drew Holiday. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hate this, but like, where do they rank in terms of backcourts in the NBA? Because they just beat Luka and Kyrie. So when I say that they might actually be the best backcourt in the NBA, they're for sure the best backcourt defensively, and I don't think it's not even close, right? And offensively, they're not going to put up the crazy numbers that these other guys are going to put up, but they're going to help their team win, and they're going to do exactly what they need to do every time to put their team in a good situation to win. Like, genuinely, are they, you have Kyrie and Luka, those are 2 superstars, right? So I don't think I can sit here and say that Drew and Derek White are the best backcourt in the league, because you have those guys that are going to erupt every single night. But like, after that, I don't really see any other backcourts that are doing what Drew Holiday and Derek White are doing on any given night, right? I mean, I'm really pressing right now to see if I can think of anybody. I just can't, because what they do is unprecedented. They're 2 of the best defenders in the NBA. They might be the 2 best perimeter defenders in the NBA, both sharing the same backcourt, and they work so well together on both ends of the floor. They're just so reliable, experienced vets who know exactly what they need to do. Derek White's in his prime for sure. I think Derek White's just entering his prime. Drew Holiday's honestly kind of still in there, maybe past it a little bit from when he was like a scoring machine, but defensively he's still in his prime, right? For sure. And he scores the ball when he needs to. They just don't have to produce the same amount that they would on other teams because they have such a great team around them. So both of those guys are ridiculous. Solid from all the big men against Dallas, including Tillman. I thought he had a great game. Tillman had some great run today as well. But against Dallas, he was 3 for 3 from the field. He had a great block. He was defending really well. And I mentioned on the last episode that I want to see Tillman get more run. I want that to continue. I want Mazzulla to keep using him. We're heading into the final stretch here, going into playoffs. I assume we're going to be resting stars. Porzingis is definitely going to get some rest. Horford's definitely going to get some rest. Tatum never wants to get rest, but you know what I mean? All these guys are going to start to get rest, and we're going to see some of these bench guys more. Sort of Mazzulla is going to try to experiment, especially with Tillman, I think, because Tillman has a chance to be a part of the rotation in the playoffs. I really believe that. I mean, watching him today and against Dallas, I think he's one of our top 5 defenders on the team. He's so good, and he can defend really any position, which is hard to see from a big man, but he's so switchable. He's so committed to his assignments, and he's just great all around. So good stuff from him against Dallas. Now, to give somebody on the Mavericks their flowers, obviously Luka Doncic is Luka Doncic. We know that. Triple-double for him. Really the source of Dallas's offense, right? Derek Lively, the center out of Duke. I was so impressed with him, and I have been really all rookie season. He's dealt with some minor injuries, which has kept him off the court for, I want to say, like 10 or 20 games. But I think he's been really good. He was 7 for 7 against the Celtics. He was great on the glass. He was just making big plays for them, like throughout the whole game. I think it's a great grab by Cuban and Kidd and the whole Dallas Mavericks organization to look at someone who, falls to you at 11 or 12, pick him up, even though there might be better guys available in terms of, like the draft board and, Jay Bilas's like best available, but he's a great fit. And that's all about finding talent that's going to work for your team, which is exactly what they did. He fell to them. They didn't rush it. They knew he was their guy, and they took him. And Derek Lively has been great for them this season. He was great for them against us. So I will give my flowers to him, especially for a team that struggles so much at the center position. I'm not trying to disrespect Dwight Powell, but Lively's obviously better than Powell. The Mavericks haven't had a solid center since Porzingis, and the Porzingis experiment for them just didn't really work out. So definitely, when they acquired Kyrie last year, that was their big problem, their lack of front court depth. But Lively's been great for them this year. I think he's a big part of why they're having a lot more success than they did last season. Okay, I hampered on the Warriors. I'll talk about them a little bit more just because this needs to be talked about, exactly how good it was. I won't even talk about the second half. Just the ball movement in the first half, so good. And it's just the reluctance to take your foot off the gas. The Celtics didn't want to take their foot off the gas that whole first half. And even in the second half, the Stay Ready crew or the starters who played for the first 5 minutes of the third quarter or so, relentless. Like, that's what I like to see from this team. Don't play with your food. Get in there and kill them. And that's exactly what they did. They destroyed the Golden State Warriors. And they destroyed the Mavericks, too, to be frank. I mean, the Celtics have now won 11 straight games. And everyone's saying, well, they were bad teams. The Warriors have been playing like any other great team in the NBA right now. 13-3 in their last 16. And they came in here and got stomped. So, like, I'm not afraid of any team in the NBA now. Because, yes, the Clippers beat us, but we beat them. We beat them more than they beat us, actually. The Bucks gave us a real rough game. I'm very excited to play the Bucks again. Very, very, very excited to play the Bucks again because I think the Celtics have something to prove. They're going to go in that game on a mission because that is another potential ECF matchup. We got another potential ECF matchup coming up on Tuesday, which I'll talk about in just a second. But when the Celtics play Milwaukee again, it should be a great, great, great game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side. I think it's going to be close all the way through because both these teams have something to prove. Now, the interesting thing with the Celtics is that they are closing in on this 1 seed. And the other team that scares me besides the Bucks and the Clippers, and they mentioned it briefly today on the broadcast, is the Miami Heat. Is there a chance that the Heat could end up as that 8 seed again? Now, that would be the most anticipated matchup between a 1 seed and an 8 seed that I can remember in the NBA. Because the Heat and the Celtics obviously had this historic rivalry over the past 3 years. I shouldn't say historic, recent rivalry over the past 3 or 4 years. They've met in the playoffs in 3 of the past 4 Eastern Conference Finals, maybe 5. I think it's 3 of the past 4 because there was that 1 year against the Nets. So 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals. That would be insane because the Heat aren't really a regular season team, right? They deal with these injuries. Jimmy Butler sits sometimes. They sort of scrape everything together during the regular season. It's like their tryout almost. It's really bizarre. And then the playoffs, they just turn it on. So that would be a crazy matchup. And I'm hoping that the Celtics can avoid that. Hopefully the Heat will, if they're the 7th seed, they'll win that first game in the play-in. Or they'll be the 6th seed and they won't have to worry about them. Either way, if that happens, the Celtics wouldn't have to worry about the Heat until the Eastern Conference Finals. If they finish with the 6th or 7th seed. If they finish with the 5th seed and they beat the 4th seed, Celtics would have to face them in the second round, obviously, because that's how seeding works. So interesting stuff to keep an eye on there. Now, coming up on Tuesday, the Celtics play the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland in what is going to be a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a good game, a chance for the Celtics to remind the world that they're the team to beat. The Cavs have been on fire this calendar year, just as good as any other team pretty much. Donovan Mitchell obviously always cooks the Celtics. He averages 29.6 points per game against the Celtics throughout his career. This is a potential Eastern Conference Finals preview, and it's going to be a tough matchup for the Celtics, especially Kristaps Porzingis, because if you think about it, this might be the hardest one that he's had in a while because Cleveland has Jarrett Allen and Mobley. They have size to match up with Porzingis, so it's going to be harder for him to find those mismatches that he looks for in most games because there's 2 guys there that can switch onto him and guard him effectively. And Porzingis isn't the best at guarding big men, so it'll be interesting to see how Allen and Mobley work together to beat the Celtics. That's going to be their mission. But I think the Celtics are going to have a really good chance. Obviously, the Celtics are the team to beat right now. The last 2 times the Celtics played, they won in the Garden. Obviously, the Cavs didn't have Mobley for those 2 games. That was right before they announced his big injury that kept him out for a couple months. The Cavs responded really well from that, and ever since they've gotten Mobley back, they've just been rolling. So this should be the ultimate heavyweight clash. I expect a really close game. I wouldn't take a massive spread. I know I said that against both these teams this past weekend, and we saw how that went, but I still would avoid it. That doesn't mean I would take the Cavs, but I would avoid a massive spread for the Celtics because I think it's going to be a really, really close game, down to the wire. My final prediction, I would say Celtics win that one by 4 points. I think it comes down to almost the final possession. All right, welcome back. There have been 2 Bruins games since the last episode, one of which they won 5-4 against the Vegas Golden Knights. And then last night, it was a disastrous outing in New York against the Islanders, a 5-1 defeat for the Bruins. With me today, I have Danielle DuBois from a variety of places, Channel 7, the Black and Gold podcast, the Box Score, a ton of amazing shows that she's been a part of, and she is a Bruins expert, and she's going to help us break it all down. Danielle, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to break down this Knights game and not so excited to talk about this Islanders game.
Yeah, did I miss anything when I was introducing you? I think I got most of it,
No,
right?
I think you got it all. You got it all.
Awesome. A very accomplished resume. All right, let's start with the good. Let's start with the Knights. Now, obviously the Bruins got out to a 3-0 lead. Ended up, sort of coughing it up. We're thinking, all right, it's going to be more of the same. They're going to go back to overtime, probably lose again. But they ended up winning in regulation for the first time. And I think it was 10 games, correct me if I'm wrong, that they actually won in regulation and not in overtime. So good stuff there. What did you like from that game? What did you see that they have to continue moving forward?
Yeah, I saw. I mean, our offense was great this game. I mean, obviously Morgan Geeky, we saw him get his first ever NHL career hat trick, which was amazing to see. But I feel like we worked really well as a team in the on purely offensively. Defense, I think there was a little bit more of the troubles, but we'll get into that later. But I think overall this season we've had a pretty solid and pretty consistent offense. And then I think it was really just the passing game was very strong in this game specifically. And I think that's why they were able to score 5 goals against Vegas. That's not an easy task to do, but they connected so well with each other, and it looked like they had really practiced their passing game over the past few days because Bruins passing is not the best recently. We've seen it. We've seen many turnovers, many too many turnovers, honestly. But for the first time in, I'd say, at least 5 or 6 games, we saw them actually work together. Every single line showed up that night, which was part of why they succeeded.
Yeah, obviously the unsung hero, Geeky. We've been sort of calling for someone to just step up. It was not how I would have expected to step up that game. You'd expect to see, Pasta with the hat trick if you told me someone was going to have a hat trick. But let's get into, we can smile all we want about that game, but the real thing we got to talk about is last night. Bruins find themselves in a hole early on that they can never dig out of. Sort of the tale as old as time for them in this past month or so. They either get a big lead and they choke it, or they go down big early and they can't get back into it. What happened last night? I mean, if the Bruins going against the Islanders, that should be an easy win. What went wrong?
Yeah, it should have been an easy win. It's not a game that should have been a 5-1 loss. It should have been at least competitive. If you're going to lose to them, you'd think that we'd be able to score at least. Um, Nobody showed up last night. It was the Bruins offense didn't show up, their defense didn't show up, and their goaltending didn't show up. I mean, that's really all there. Like other losses, you can pinpoint one specific thing, like, oh, this was strictly a defensive loss, and our defense has been incredibly shaky this season. And I would
Yeah.
say that most of our losses have been purely defensive. You can have two of the best goaltenders in the NHL, but when your defense is this shaky and this awful, there's only so much they can do, which we saw in the Vegas game. The defense was not good. We won, which is great. It was a pretty brutal game though defensively.
When was the last game that you can remember where the defense has been like good? Because I'm hard pressed to remember. It's just been such a weak point for them this season.
I think oh yeah, I don't remember.
I can't even think of
um
one.
Not anytime recently. I think it was January probably.
Yeah,
Sometime early January.
I get now. Why is that? Why is the defense taking such a sharp drop off this season, in your opinion?
I am not sure exactly what it is. I think we have a lot of defenders that I think we overpay, such as
Sure.
Matt Grzelcyk. I think although we've had a lot of players that were good defenders at some point, and I think there's a lot of them just aren't clicking with the team anymore. Something defensively isn't working with either the lineups. We've been trying to change them up. I know Jim Montgomery, since he's come in, he's changed the defensive lineups pretty consistently, and it seems like none of them have been working since last year's playoffs. And Lindholm was great last season. Last season playoffs come around, he was non-existent, and he's continued to be non-existent, which
Yeah.
is a big part of it. I mean, the only defenseman that we see consistently show up is Charlie McAvoy, which
Right.
is great because the amount we're paying him. But you need the other defensemen to
Yeah.
show up and do their job as well. So I think we
Yeah.
need to get rid of some defenders, bring in some new talent. I think Mason Lohrei is a great addition to our defense, and I think we should stop sending him down to Providence and continue to allow
Yeah.
him to work through his mistakes on our
I agree with
team
that.
because he is so talented on offense and both on offense and the defensive side of the puck, which is really what we need currently.
Yeah,
While he is
you need
younger, but
something.
exactly, we need something, and I
Yeah.
think he knows what he's doing, and he's still young, making those mistakes, but he needs to learn somehow. So we need to just keep him up here, and honestly, we can send a lot of our defenders away.
Yeah, McAvoy is obviously the guy on the defensive end, but we need more people to step up for sure. I want to ask you about Jake DeBrusk. He's had it's a very puzzling season for him. Hasn't been great by any measure. What do you make of that? And is there a chance that he's shipped off before March 8th?
I would not be surprised if we get rid of him before March 8th. At the same time, it doesn't seem like we're gonna get rid of him, but if there was one Bruin to go, I think he's the top of everybody's list currently. We, I mean, Bruins Nation, I feel like, has had a very complicated relationship with DeBrusk.
Yeah.
Um, People either loved him or hated him a few years ago, and then Bruce Cassidy ended up leaving the Bruins mainly because of DeBrusk.
Hmm.
And it was DeBrusk and all of the other younger guys that he didn't connect with. And so that was a big part. We basically chose DeBrusk over Bruce Cassidy, who then went on to win a Stanley Cup. And that shows the caliber of coaching that he has.
Couldn't beat us on Friday though. Or was it Thursday?
No,
Couldn't beat us on Thursday. That was
could not.
nice. Yeah.
Nice win for us.
Yeah.
But DeBrusk, I think for the amount that we've been paying him in the contract currently, it's just not a situation worth pursuing if you're the Bruins. You need to be able to spend that money elsewhere. And for the amount of money, we should be seeing a little bit more offense from him.
Yeah, I agree. Another guy I want to ask about, Olmark. Any chance you think that he gets traded and the Bruins sort of pick Swayman as their number one guy going forward?
I would not be surprised. However, I think if it were to happen, it would have already. There
Okay.
was huge talks of him going to Calgary when we played against Calgary, I think last week on our West Coast trip. And there was a lot of talks with that, and he was in that. And a lot of people thought, oh, this is his last game as a Bruin, but no deal was worked out. I don't know if it was ever really in the talks. I never really heard anything too much of it, but there were strong rumors about it. So I'm thinking Olmark will stay at the moment, and this will be a difficult off season. And I think
Yeah.
most likely get rid of Swayman then, since Olmark is on contract if we don't trade him away.
He had a dreadful game against the Kraken. I was really ragging on him for that game. The first goal they scored where he just absolutely messed up the clearance. Yeah, so he's had some rough moments and obviously a rough playoffs for him last year.
Yeah, that
After
was brutal.
such a good season, that was very very disappointing. Can you make any sense of this overtime thing? That like why they keep going overtime? Obviously they didn't the last two games, but like, is there any reason for it? I mean, you like you're way more into hockey in general than I am. Like, have you ever seen anything like this, and why does it keep happening?
I've never seen anything like this where it's consistently going to overtime, and I
Yeah.
could easily bet all my money most games that it's going to overtime, and I'd feel very confident in it.
Right.
I think part of the reason is in the third period, first of all, we're giving up the leads is the main thing in the third period, which is brutal. And Bruins, I feel like, always succeed in the second and third period. Usually we're not a good first period team, but lately it's changed.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because Jim Montgomery is barely playing the third and fourth line in the third period. It's been purely the first and second, which is fine. However, our third and fourth line have been so talented recently,
Yeah.
and we've had so much of our offense come from those lines lately. And I don't know what it is, but something about those younger guys, the depth there, it works and it clicks and it puts our team together. And we're just not allowing them to play barely any minutes in the third period. And I think that's a big part of it because they continue to keep the energy up, and these other teams don't have the depth that we do.
Right.
So the fact that we're not using it in the third period, I think is a huge giveaway. Also, our defense isn't ever good. So then by the time that the last 20 minutes roll around, they're tired from
Yeah.
chasing down the pucks. They're never in front of the play. They're always chasing from behind, and that's part of it as well.
So the first two lines run out of gas, you think, and then instead of bringing on the third lines for relief, the third and fourth lines, it just goes awry. Is what you're saying?
100%. They
Okay.
basically I don't know if Jim Montgomery just has more confidence in the first two lines in the final minutes of play because you have veterans such as Pastrnak and Brad Marchand in those lines.
Yep.
But at those times, the third line is basically just out there to just relieve them for a quick minute. And they shouldn't be there. They should be there trying to grind down the other team and wear them out and continue to keep that lead and protect it. You don't need
Got
them
it.
to score points. You just need them to protect it. And I know that our third and fourth line can.
Yeah, I agree with you. Trade deadline obviously coming up. Anyone specifically you'd like for the Bruins to bring in? I don't know what you've heard in terms of rumors. Do you think that they'll bring anyone in? If so, who?
At the moment, I don't think there's going to be any huge trades. It just, it, I mean, it could come down to the wire. The Bruins are one of those teams where we either go big and get
Yeah.
a lot of players, which I feel like last year we had a pretty good haul.
Yeah, I
But
agree, and I think a lot of people weren't expecting that because of how good
no,
they had been doing up to that point.
nobody expected that
Yeah,
because of how good they were, and also Bruins are just never spenders really in the
right.
trade. So I'm thinking we're going to kind of resort and not really touch too much. But if we're looking for players to trade away, I would definitely be looking into trading away Brandon Carlo, Matt Grizz, like some of our bigger names on defense that you can still get something for your money for.
Yeah, because clearly something has to change. All right, your last question. Um, do you think the Bruins can realistically make a run this year? Can they win a Stanley Cup? What will it take? What do they have to do to buckle down and get that Stanley Cup victory?
They have to, if they were going to make a playoff run and a deep one, they would have to trust their third and fourth lines to continue to show up and do their jobs, which they will. They need to on their younger guys, such as Mason Lohrei, and they need a better defense. Their defense that they have now will not go anywhere. And I know I've talked about it practically this entire time, but that's really their main problem. Their goaltending is great. The scoring is there. We know they can do it. It's purely defense. And Charlie McAvoy can't do everything for them. And even Charlie
Right.
McAvoy's been having his off days. So
Yeah.
realistically, it's not going to be our year. Maybe win a playoff game, a playoff round. Sorry, get
A
past the
series. I was
first
gonna say a
round.
game.
Series.
I can
Yeah,
hope
we'll
they
win
can win a game.
a series.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's not looking too hot. But they might come out and surprise us, maybe. But
They have the talent to do it, right? I mean, on
They
paper, they should. They just gotta execute. Well, all right. Thank you so much, Danielle, for coming in. I'm sure we'll have you back, especially as we get down to the stretch closer to the playoffs. But thanks so much again for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. All right, let's talk about the Revolution. Dropped the game today against Toronto FC 1-0 in their home opener. Before I talk about the game, I want to say shout out to Slide, the New England Revolution mascot. It's like a fox thing. Not a thing. It's a fox. I don't know if it's a he or a she or a they, but it's a fox. Yeah, shout out to that fox because the Revs took a crew into Boston Common yesterday. I think it was Copley Square first and then Boston Common. So I stopped by to say hi. They're giving out free stuff. So shout out to Slide. Took a picture with Slide. All great stuff. Anyway, let's talk about today because it was another disappointing result, obviously. Revs at the bottom of the table so far this season. Obviously, it's only 2 games, but they got to start finding their groove soon. This today, I mean, it's interesting because for the first 20 or so minutes, I'm like, they're rolling. They're going to cook. They're going to destroy this team because they were pressing. They had great possession, great build-up play. They're doing everything right. They just couldn't find that finishing touch to get it into the net. And then obviously, Lorenzo Insigne. I touched on him last episode. He is such a world-class player, one of the best in the MLS. Finds a chip shot that just finds a side netting. Ravas, the goalie, didn't even know it was headed towards goal until it was too late. So great moment of class from him. And the Revs couldn't really bounce back after that. The second half, they were really on the front foot. They were really pressing. Toronto subbed out Insigne at the half because they're trying to, he's obviously getting older, so they're trying to keep him active, keep him healthy, save, some of his legs for, it's a long season, so making sure he's healthy for the whole season. But, the Revs just couldn't really find the finishing touch. They seem to have, been almost too patient. Esmir Bajraktarevic had a few chances that I just felt like he should have been a little bit faster. And Carles Hill even had some times where I thought he should have been faster because they had their chances. They would go up the wing, they would find a good ball, but it just wouldn't work out in the end for them. Poor decision making also. I think some of the passes just weren't there. They just weren't finding that cutthroat, incisive pass to just put one away. It just wasn't happening. But I do have to give credit. Sean Johnson, the goalkeeper, for Toronto, absolutely remarkable game. Remarkable clean sheet from him. He had a good one last time, too, against FC Cincinnati, but remarkable job from him. Now, in the first half, the VAR was used because a defender, I don't remember who it was on Toronto, stepped on Bayraktarovic's foot in the penalty box, and he fell to the ground. And VAR was used, the ref goes to look at the monitor, clear as day contact, and it's somehow not a penalty. Like, if you didn't look at that clip, or if you weren't watching live and you care, go look it up, because I've never seen anything like that before. Now, the VAR, overturn rate, if a ref gets called to the VAR to look at the monitor, it gets overturned 92% of the time. So this was one of the 8%, right, where it doesn't get overturned, and I'm baffled as to why it didn't. It just makes no sense to me, because if that happens, Carles Hill nets that penalty, and it's a completely different game, right? Now, it just seems like a stroke of poor play, but also bad luck from the Revs. Awful luck. And because in the first game, it was Vrioni kind of being a bonehead, but also it's just unlucky. Like, his first yellow card was somewhat unlucky. The second one was a little questionable for a yellow. It just doesn't make much sense. And I just don't understand how that could possibly not be viewed as a penalty. If you step on someone's foot and they fall to the ground as they're about to receive possession of the ball, is that not a penalty? Someone please explain to me why that wasn't called. I just don't understand. Moving on, Mark Anthony Kaye should be getting more minutes. Hello. He's one of the most experienced guys on the team. Had a great run today, I thought. He should have been in there. I know that the Revs have depth, but you need to figure out who your starting 11 is, and you have to address the elephant in the room, which is that they don't have a striker. Because Vrioni was ineligible to play today because he was suspended. So they're kind of running Shankalai as a number 9. Shankalai was fine. He just wasn't, I feel like they weren't feeding him correctly. He's not used to playing in that position, so he wasn't in the spots that he should have been the whole game. But they need to find someone who's a real number 9. Now, if Vrioni's going to come back next game and maybe he'll erupt and, score a goal or get an assist or just do something to contribute to the team. Anything at all is all I'm asking. But maybe he won't. Maybe he won't, and they'll come in and they'll go against Thiago Almada and he'll score a goal and get an assist against them. And Brad Guzan will have a clean sheet, and the Revs will lose their third straight game to start off the season. I hope that doesn't happen, but it's possible. It's definitely possible. So hopefully the Revs can get this all figured out. They can clean it up. A great opportunity for them to do it is the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is on Wednesday. They're playing Alajuelense. I hope I said that right. Alajuelense, which is a team I've never heard of. They're from Costa Rica. They're third place in their domestic league, but they'll be coming to Gillette on Wednesday for the first of 2 legs in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. While this tournament doesn't matter so much, it's a great opportunity for the Revolution to get back on track, to get some of that momentum back, to get some of their confidence back, really, which they should have done last week when they beat them 3-0. They should have came into this game feeling confident, and I think they did. They started off on the front foot so confident, and then once Insigne got that goal, it was a whole different game. It was sort of against the flow of play because New England was so dominant up to that point. But once Insigne put it in the net, it was over. The Revs had their chances, but honestly, so did Toronto. There was never a time where I was like, okay, this is where they're going to score. I lost my confidence in the team as the game continued to progress because they just weren't up to the challenge today. That's really all it is. They just couldn't find the back of the net. Bummer for the home fans. Bummer for the people who showed up. It was a beautiful day out, though, so there was forecast of rain, which is why I didn't end up going today. And I want to watch the Celtics as well. Glad I made that decision. But, yeah, a little bit of a bummer for the home side there, for the spectators who came to watch. Hopefully they can get it back on track starting on Wednesday. I have confidence that they'll win that game on Wednesday. This weekend, we'll preview it a little more. It's against Atlanta. As I said, we'll preview it more on Thursday as we get closer to the game. Maybe we'll hear more about Carles Hill. Obviously, he was questionable coming into today's game with an Achilles injury. Played through it, but didn't really look like himself, so we'll see what the update is with him. I'm sure he won't play on Wednesday's game. We'll see about the fitness. We'll see about the squad that Craig Porter decides to roll out, trying to find his first win in his new job with New England. My prediction, I think that the Revs will win on Wednesday 3-0, and Atlanta, I'll wait until Thursday. I'll see how the team is starting to shape up before I give my final prediction on that, but overall, bummer of a season for the Revs so far. Hopefully they can get it back on track. Now, I want to talk about the dynasty again, the Patriots documentary on Apple TV Plus, because I just think they came out with one of the coolest episodes, which is the Aaron Hernandez episode, which shouldn't be the coolest episode. I should say it was the best episode. And very insightful to see those interviews with the players who were around him at the time, hearing about, sort of the just disgusting behavior that he was displaying in the locker room. When they were telling the story about Wes Welker, being just terrified of him as if he'd seen a ghost. When he was telling, I think it was Lloyd, the receiver, Brandon Lloyd, that, to like just mind your own business, stay in your own lane with him. And it makes you wonder like how much the Patriots really knew about Aaron Hernandez when they drafted him. And also as, his career was going on and he was getting into more trouble, because they mentioned it like, oh, we knew he had off the field issues, but they didn't really go into what they knew the issues were, which is what I kept asking, like, what were the issues? Like, what did they know about this guy that they didn't let off? And they talk about that in the documentary. How much did they know? And there is, of course, the whole elephant in the room with the Patriots organization, which is that he asked to be traded. Aaron Hernandez asked to be traded to the West Coast after there was, 2 people murdered, which he later was charged for, but he was acquitted of those murders. But he asked to be traded to the West Coast to get away from it, and Belichick said no. Belichick would not let him get traded, and of course he goes and, commits the murder of his friend, and the rest is history. So interesting stuff there. I love the clip with Gronk. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. When he gets drafted, he talks about how him and his family go on the stage and they're dancing around. They're going, hoo, hoo, hoo. I think you've probably seen the Gronks do, usually him with his brothers. And I guess Belichick or somebody in the Patriots war room called him and they were like, get off the stage. And he was like, I've been a Patriot for 5 minutes and I'm already getting in trouble, which I feel like encapsulates his personality so much. He's just such a funny guy. He's such a bro. He's such a party guy, it seems like. So that was good stuff there. The episode before, seeing Tom Brady's torn ACL year where he missed the entirety of that season. I think it was 08-09. Obviously brutal stuff to see, and that's not really looked back on it that much when you think about the dynasty and, not the show, but the actual Patriots dynasty. It's not really considered much that Brady actually did suffer a pretty significant injury. But good stuff there. It's crazy that they finished 11-5 and didn't make the playoffs. I think a lot of people forget that. They look at that season as kind of a wash, but 11-5, I feel like in today's NFL would be crazy if you're not making the playoffs with that record. So that was interesting stuff. Love that episode. I love what the show is doing so far. I love the interviews. I'm really looking forward to the next couple episodes that will come out on Friday, because we're getting into, like these last few episodes, there haven't been any Super Bowls. They've been Super Bowl losses, or playoff losses. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the winning ways. The Seahawks Bowl. We have the Falcons Bowl. We have, of course, the Rams. So, getting back into the happy times of the show before we get into the ultimate sad part of the show where Brady and Belichick butt heads. Brady leaves, goes to the Bucs, wins another ring. We all know how that goes. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how the rest of the show plays out. There's 2 more weeks of it because 2 episodes come out a week. So if you haven't checked that out, I would definitely recommend it. Great stuff so far. I think it's a near perfect documentary, especially if you're a Patriots fan. It's definitely worth the watch. I would check it out, especially these last 2 episodes that came out. I thought they were both very good and had some very interesting subjects. Anyway, this has been Title Time Talk Podcast. My name is Jackson Tolliver. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for Danielle DuBois for coming in and doing that interview about the Bruins. Hopefully the Bruins and the Revs can get better results as the week goes on. And for the Celtics, just keep on rolling. I'll see you next time.